Good afternoon, and welcome to Man Cave Meditations. Let's dive in. So, it's since my last video, as per usual, the amount that would normally happen in 6 months to a year happen in 6 days. I don't even know if it's that long since I posted. But we have officially joined since I last posted, we have officially joined the United States of America has officially joined the war with Israel and Iran. Safe to say, even before, we were certainly helping Israel. I'm sure. But to the extent, we didn't, the public certainly didn't realize. But now we have dropped bombs on Iran, on the country of Iran. The United States has dropped bombs on Iran, on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. I'm not going to I've heard what the locations are, the names, but in the end, they've dropped bombs on them. And supposedly the mountain, even though the mountain fortress, or the Iranian nuclear facility within the mountain, supposedly that wasn't even completely destroyed. And who's even saying supposedly intelligence didn't even know if Iran had moved all this stuff that we're trying to destroy, the enriched uranium, someplace else. And, I mean, you have to think to yourself, looking at this administration, looking at the people who are in charge, one must ask themselves, any discerning American must ask themselves, was any of this thought through, to a degree? I'm sure the initial phase was thought through, I'm sure it was very well executed by the pilots and our technology and everything, and bombing. I'm sure that part was thought through. But did anybody who think those things through think about, what might come afterwards? Similar to 20 years back. Well, over 20 years at this point, when we invaded Iraq. To find the weapons of mass WMDs. They were never there. Did we, did anybody, just like then, did anybody think anything through? Beyond the first step? Again, yes, we successfully attacked Iraq. Obviously, post the first Gulf War, Saddam's, the army was extraordinarily weakened. It was a shadow of its former self, so it wasn't going to be that hard to pull it down, But we got our great footage back then of toppling Saddam's statue, everybody pulling that down. George W. on the deck of the aircraft carrier. I don't remember if he flew his own plane or something like that, but big photo op of, wow, we won, mission accomplished. And we got pulled into a quagmire, right? We didn't leave. We disbanded the army. Great, good thinking. Disbanded the Iraqi army. Disbanded them. What do you think they're going to do at that point? Instead of saying okay, we got rid of the bad guy, now let's there was no plan. The point is there was no plan. And then what do we have from that? Thousands of Americans killed. How many, that weren't killed are full military benefit, disability, lost limbs, and the people who got cancer from the smoke burn pits, or the tens or hundreds of thousands of Iraqis who were killed. as that country was just torn apart. And all that chaos, all that black hole of chaos, that led to ISIS. You know. So we haven't learned our lesson at all. Same thing in Afghanistan. We just prop up the regime, and then all of a sudden when the U.S. pulls out, well, ISIS came in. The U.S. pulls out of Afghanistan, well, then Taliban comes right back. Hey, we're back. Like nothing ever happened. You know? Those trillions of dollars we poured into that country is making all the bureaucrats there rich. And our mixture of it, just arrogance, imbecility in that you don't have the ability to learn from past mistakes. You don't have the ability to see beyond the first step. Right? Imbecility. You can't see beyond that. You know? And we have plenty of lessons. Again, not just Iraq and Afghanistan, Vietnam. Let's talk about a quagmire. And if you look at all the things that led up to these conflicts, it was arrogance, stupidity, just not being able to see, just this idea that we are we're like the country 70 years ago, 80 years ago that liberated Europe. That's what we are still. We're not that anymore. We're not that. Not only because we're just talking about 1991, post-Soviet Union. We're not that anymore. But we still pretend we are within, or at least we keep telling ourselves that we are. We're not. I mean, just looking at just what happened right now, we just bombed Iran. Iran wasn't threatening the United States. They had to deal with us, which was ripped up because the 5-year-old who was in office didn't like the fact that it was from his predecessor. It had nothing to do with the merits of the deal. Right? And you look at the parallels between him and George W. Again, someone who never should have been in office. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of Republicans who disagree with me, people, but never should have been in office. The Iraq War was a disaster. Absolute disaster, shit show. And again, it's just, how much of this has been thought through? Just like, and here's the deal, like everything that they do domestically and this and that, and try to put, you look at all the policies and the things that they're doing, the tariffs, shit show, the, rounding up immigrants who are, some citizens, sending them to El Salvador, shit show, deploying troops to LA, shit show. Like everything they touch, the big beautiful bill, add $4 trillion to the deficit. We are acting as we have for decades to a degree, except now our standing has decreased to the degree we're acting like blind. We're being blind to the fact that we're not the same country as we once were. And the world certainly does not, especially with the actions of the last 6 months, does not view us as that country. But we're still acting like we're that country. Yeah, we may still have the biggest tools and the biggest, military. But they don't trust us. Or at least the people, our adversaries don't respect us to the degree. They know there's a madman at the wheel. There's a madman at the wheel. So we're in a way almost behaving like the Russians did invading Ukraine. I'm sure in the Russians' eyes and Putin's eyes it was like, this is what needs to happen. Okay. Right? But in the eyes of the rest of the world, you're invading a sovereign country who was not a threat to you. You told your people and you believed yourself that they were a threat to you, but they really weren't. Just like we're doing with Iran. A nation of 92 million people with friends. Some of the greatest friends have been greatly diminished. Hezbollah, yeah. Hamas, starving a country, not a country, but a nation should be called a nation of 2 million people. They're being starved to death and bombed by Israel. But Hezbollah, Hamas, they've been the Houthis, they've been downgraded to a degree. There's still threats, but they've been downgraded. But what about anybody who, the brilliant people, these brilliant minds think about, what could Russia think? Who's been on a war footing for the past 3 years, 3+ years, 2+ years, anyway. They have a war economy. They're allied with Iran. So is China. It may not be direct military assistance. India, Pakistan. These countries are, Modi just canceled his upcoming visit to the U.S. Country of 1 billion people. China, 1 billion people. Russia, maybe a shadow of what it used to be, but still 200 million people. Now we're the aggressor. So these countries are going to be, at least, if not with men, it could be with men, but they could start pouring assets into Iran. And then you have Israel, which is equivalent in population and in land size to the state of the United States, one of the 50 in the United States that I live in. And it's one of the smaller of the 50, New Jersey. I looked, they have basically the same size in populations, right? 10 million people. Israel maybe a little more. New Jersey, I think it was 2023 the numbers came out. It was between 9.5 and 10 million for each. So I got to assume it's almost the same, very similar. And I'm thinking to myself, I live in the south of Jersey, but what if, Trenton started getting bombed? Or Newark? It's like, these places, it's not like in U.S. where if L.A. gets bombed and you live in New York, or there's an attack, it's 1,000 miles away. No, these places. Israel, you could, just like New Jersey, you could start from the southern point and go to the northern point of the country, probably 2-hour drive. Nation of 10 million people. And they're getting hit. The Iron Dome is failing. Of course, you don't hear about this in American legacy media, but the Iron Dome's failing. So the U.S. warships come in. And U.S. is air and naval power. It's of course we have troops, but that's the whole basis of it. So we just got to completely prop Israel. Israel can't fall, obviously. That's why other past presidents have refused to do this. So did anybody think any of this through? If Israel can't fall and Iran keeps, pummeling them, and China, India, Russia, they start pumping assets into Iran. And we have to do the same for Israel. Well, this sounds pretty close to World War III to me. Anybody think any of this through? Anybody think anything that think about the fact that we already had a first quarter instead of a contraction, instead of a 2% increase in GDP as was originally predicted pre-Trump? Anybody think about that? And the fact that we are on the verge of our own recession? Anybody think about Iran's ability to shut off the Strait of Hormuz? And have gas go, shoot up 30, 40, 50%. $4.50 a gallon. Now it's like $3. Anybody think about that? And how that might affect an already struggling economy? Anybody think about that? Oh, was it just let's get them? Because we have the bigger stick, let's use it. And as we drop more bombs and we drew this and that, no, we just drop bombs. They can't hit us. Not that anybody think about all the bases around there? Are we just going to abandon them all? That Iran could hit them? No, anybody think? Or all their proxies that still exist. They're not destroyed. They still exist. Anybody think about that? So we're going to get sucked into this. It's going to be a shit show. A shit show. I believe it has the potential to be much more of a shit show than Iraq was. The second Iraq war. We're committed now. And Trump's so stupid, he can't step down. And that huge distraction that this war, this potential, well, again, it's potential, but I feel that it could become, that's going to completely distract against everything that's going on in the home front. You know? Hey, going into the Democratic blue cities, you know, maybe I'll stop elections. It's wartime, I got to stop elections. Right? They probably thought about that. Yeah, we could use this whole conflict as a way to just keep control. That's got to be some of it. Because they know that if we have midterms, they're going to get smoked. They know it. They know they'll get smoked. Because the American people are pissed. So let's just take control. Maybe we won't have elections because, listen, everything's just so crazy right now. We couldn't even think about having them. Oh, I'm sure there's something in the cost of wartime thing I'm ignorant of, but yeah, that's part of the plan. Yeah? And just ignite that, military-industrial complex. Turn us into like a Russia. Just, 50% of the economy is just making, bombs and tanks and whatever. And the average American, I'll leave it with this. The average American is going to start seeing on the TV, because Iran is a nation of, we're 250 years old here. They're like, a couple thousand. Persia, Alexander, a few thousands of years. Alexander that was Iran. The Fertile Crescent, dawn of civilization. That's Iran. Nation of 92 million people. And it's big. And it's proud. And they're not going to back down from this. They're not going to back down from this. And a lot of their hatred of America stems from the fact that they had a democratically elected president who we overthrew in, I want to say, 1953? Overthrew it, When post-World War II, the CIA and everybody, they were like overthrowing presidents, democratically elected presidents all over the place. I think they overthrew someone president of Guatemala over like a United Fruit Company dispute or something about profits. Just overthrow them. We fucked up some of these countries for decades. Some have never recovered because of the recklessness of what we did post-World War II, those actions. But anyway, we overthrew the democratically elected president of Iran at the I want to say 53. And we put this guy in the Shah, who lasted until 1979. Supposedly they would fly, their lunches and dinners, food in from Paris, or his wife would take, would bathe in milk. Well, the people starved. And so, 1979. He was overthrown. And America gave him asylum. He was dying of cancer. And you had the U.S. embassy in Iran, the hostage crisis, which destroyed Jimmy Carter's presidency in the late 70s. It is a deep history there. But before that, U.S. was like, we were giving Iran all of their weapons during the time of the Shah. And that's why some of their Air Force is still from like the late 70s. The last time U.S. gave them the equipment. And this whole thing is just turning us, as the world has already known, we are the aggressor. Now it's just like screaming it out on a megaphone. We're the aggressor. Iran is they're the victim. So it's all going to turn on its head. It is. It is. And the American, the average American's going to start seeing on TV, or however they get their news. If they get their news from Fox, they'll probably never see it. But if they get in anywhere that actually says what is so, they're going to start seeing that Americans, at least starting over there, overseas, start losing their lives. At the bases. And, they're going to get hit. Could be a terror attack in the United States. Who knows? And 9/11 happened. We've been fortunate not to have anything major happen since, but who knows? Now we've kicked the hornet's nest. So who knows what could happen now? Who knows? And to top all that off, we have the worst administration in probably the history of our country, running the country. Arguably the worst. Worst department, the defense secretary, Marco Rubio, the only probably competent one. He's got like 20 jobs. We have no National Security Council because Laura Loomer got them all fired. So no one knows what the fuck they're doing. And they chose to pull this trigger now. And there's no one there. There's no Mattis, there's no Kelly, there's nobody. And I pray that this simply is resolved by the fact that, Iran hits us back somehow at a base or whatever, and then we just leave it be. But I feel that the only reason why we didn't attack when during Trump's first term, when they killed Soleimani, and then we got hit, the base got hit, no casualties, but no deaths. The only reason we probably didn't hit back is because he had people around him that say, no, that's it, we're done. It's like you gave them a punch and they give you a punch. There's nobody around him like that anymore. There's this rah, Mark Levin, let's get him. All these people, let's get them. None of their kids are going to be in harm's way, but let's get them. Yeah. So this could get ugly quick, and I pray it doesn't. But it could. It could. And the only remedy at this point for a sane Congress, to do would be impeachment. And the scariest part of all of it is that there's absolutely, I feel there's zero chance of that. That's how much the disease is spread. So it's going to be up to the people. So, and this is going to be one more thing that wakes us up. All right, spoken too much. God bless.